A Retro Ramble with.
This episode's special guest has a passion and love for the older consoles and computers, such as the Archimedes and early PCs, but his one true love will always have an Atari sticker located somewhere on it. He enjoys upgrading and fixing his old machines and also doing informative teardowns, showing how they are put together. Did I mention he likes bees? It gives me great pleasure to chat to Rees from Ctrl-Alt-Rees.
I kind of begged my parents afterwards, I want an Atari kind of thing. And that's how I ended up getting the Atari STE, which is kind of what set me down this path of what I do. Well, my entire life my professional life as a software developer and the YouTube side of things as well. So, yeah.
So do you develop software as like your job as well? Then is that what you do? Create programs and things.
Yeah. So my day job, I'm a self-employed software developer. I work on kind of boring corporate .NET type stuff. And so the good thing being self-employed is that obviously I'm quite flexible time, which is kind of one of the things that's allowed me to kind of work on the channel over the past year. Obviously, not being allowed to leave the house also helps in that respect. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I bet that's quite a good thing because obviously you can do your work wherever you've got a laptop, I would imagine, or a computer.
Yeah, well, it's been a big change for a lot of people. Obviously, the working from home over the past year, but I've been doing it for 10 years now. I do have an office and I do work on site with customers as well. But yeah, I work from home a lot, so it's quite nice. It's quite a good setup I've got here. Although obviously there's quite a lot of distractions in my office as well.
I was just about to say, it sounds like your office is like the perfect office, if you like, surrounded by all those retro goodness around you. So.
Yeah, you'd think so, but then some days it's like, do I write this bit of code for this customer, or do I spend the day playing Bubble Bobble or whatever? So.
See, it's
hopefully they're not watching.
Yeah, it's interesting that you went down the Atari. So was it always Atari that you was sort of attracted to, and none of the other computers like Spectrums or Commodores or 64 or anything like? Was it always the Atari side?
Yeah. The thing is, people talk about like the playground rivalry and fanboyism, I guess is the modern term for it. But when I was a kid, I don't really remember any of that. I mean, I had two best friends, Daryl and Nathan, their names were. One of them had an Amiga 500. Nathan had an Amstrad, I think, PPC 464, I think, like the older one. And we all just used to go around each other's houses and play on each other's computers and just kind of enjoyed playing with stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I've always been on the Atari side myself because that's kind of what I had as a kid. But I own Amigas, I own Acorn Archimedes and PCs and all sorts of stuff, and I just enjoy tinkering with stuff, really. So, yeah.
It's I saw one of the videos you did about the Archimedes. That so took me back to being at school because I remember that at the senior school, at the primary school we had BBC Micros, but when we got to senior school it was the Archimedes, and I always remember using it for, was it Pro Artisan, the art package that came with it. So I really enjoyed that video you did.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the rivalry between the Amiga and the Atari ST, I think the Archimedes had both of us beat, to be honest. So,
yeah,
it's a really great machine for its day, but quite expensive and one that not a lot of people got to experience. So, play with.
It definitely held its own with the 3D side of things. I think it totally beat the Amiga and Atari ST hands down with the 3D type of stuff. A bit like you say, it's a shame that it never really got into the home because obviously the more popular it was, the more software you would get developed for it. So it's a shame, really.
Yeah, especially considering how big the ARM CPU is nowadays. I mean, it was kind of miles ahead of anything at the time. So. But there you go. I think the PC kind of won out and ended up beating all of us, didn't it?
but saying that, I do enjoy, because the path I sort of took was like 8-bit, 16-bit with the Amiga, and then onto the PC. So then like the four, I think my first computer was a 486 SX25. And I remember tinkering with the auto exec bat files and configs, not loading mouse drivers up so you could run programs because of the memory limit and stuff. Did you have memories of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, after Atari, I think that kind of 90s PC gaming is probably my biggest passion. I've got it just slightly out of shot, but I've got my 486 here. That's permanently set up on the desk. I absolutely love that thing. But yeah, after we had the Atari STE, we moved on to a 486. I think it was a DX266. So not long after you got into it. It was such a great era to be into PC stuff because everything was just moving so quickly. So I'm glad that I kind of grew up through that era and got to experience that.
Yeah, it's interesting again, like you say, that era of you went from like the loading loads of discs up in like Monkey Island 2 and stuff like that, and you could actually use a hard drive, and it made the game a lot better. And also then you'd also got the 256 colours, which was a big improvement on the 32 colours that you'd had, and it were like I have really good memories of the PC times.
Sound was the one thing that got me. I remember when we had the Atari ST at home, and I remember going to a friend's house and they had Wolfenstein 3D, and he had an ad-lib sound card, and I remember just being absolutely blown away by that. In fact, I think showing that to my dad is essentially what led us to get that first PC. Obviously, he was so impressed with it as well. So, yeah, good times.
The ad-lib, because that's something else as well. You can always tell with the for me, it's like with the Amiga, it was like the mods and that sampling type of thing. But with the PC, it went on to the MIDIs, and it was that sound and that specific MIDI sound. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's real instruments, and it's that again is that early PC memory.
Yeah, definitely. And then Doom, of course. I'm still obsessed with Doom now.
So it's interesting as well because on one of your videos you answered actually a question that I was going to ask, but because at the RM I thought it was a Nimbus and I'd never seen one, but you mentioned that it's not, it's the one after the Nimbus, because I'd never heard of that until a few years ago. So yeah,
well, obviously you mentioned that you had the BBC at school and then they had the Archimedes after that. My experience was the BBC and then the Nimbus. And then I went on to secondary school, and they actually had the later 486 RM PCs. So ultimately, being a 486 guy and having experienced those PCs, that's kind of the one that I decided to go for rather than the Nimbus. I would like a Nimbus, but they seem to hold their value really well, and I don't think I can quite justify it. So. But yeah, the Nimbus is an interesting machine because it's. I think it's microchannel architecture as well, so it's a bit unusual.
Is it part DOS? Is it like half and half, part DOS and something else? It's like a bit not full DOS, is it, or full IBM compatible?
Yeah, it's not full. No, I think it's the 186 CPU as well. I think it's one of the only computers that actually used an Intel 186 CPU, so it's not really compatible with much. Yeah, machine.
It's interesting machine. It's funny though, again, like you say, because obviously you must be a bit younger than me. That's why you can remember those. I'm an old git, so it's interesting because again, I'd never heard of a 186 until I read up about the Nimbus. I didn't even know it existed. I'd heard of 286s obviously, and that, but. What are the other things I was going to ask about? So obviously you do videos in relation to like the electronic side of things. So you like I was watching the one around the Atari Sparrow. Was it you bought the board for?
Oh yeah.
To
type.
Yeah, that's the one. And I found that really interesting because again, I like how you explain what different things are and what goes where. And it fascinates me that they built something but didn't build something. If that makes sense, because they didn't put the parts on it. They knew that's where it was going to go, but they didn't actually fit the parts on.
Yeah, Atari I think Commodore were very much the same in that era, in that they were kind of use the radio friendly term. They were kind of throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think there are a lot of kind of half finished prototypes around and that kind of stuff. Obviously, the Sparrow went on to become the Falcon eventually, but there do seem to be quite a lot of prototype boards around in various states of disrepair. So, yeah.
Did you ever build any of it, or did you decide against that, or is it too hard to get the parts? Or
I actually probably not got it immediately to hand, but I actually started buying the parts because, like you say, as I mentioned in the video, I kind of tracked down what all of the original chips would have been, and I've started buying. I think people have talked me out of any kind of restoration, because I've got the board on the wall now as a bit of an ornament, and I think it kind of tells the story of that era of Atari better in its current state than it would do if it was fully restored. And ultimately, even if I did manage to get it working, it doesn't really run anything, so it wouldn't be very useful anyway. So for now, I'm taking the easier option and leaving it as it is. But like I say, I am kind of collecting parts as well, just in case.
So if it was fully assembled, would it just basically resemble the Falcon then? Would it be like a prototype Falcon, if you like?
Pretty much. But I think there were some very last minute changes to, I think they changed the DSP chip that handles the audio side of things, and a couple of other little bits. So I don't think it would actually run any Falcon software, and I don't think any of the prototype software that they did run on it at the time has been preserved and is available. I think the TOS chips, the operating system, is, but other than that. So I think the best I could probably get out of it is get it to boot to a desktop, and then that would be it. Which would be, I mean, it'd be pretty exciting in and of itself. And there are other boards out there that are in working order, but yeah, probably a huge job for not much actual benefit, and kind of destroying a piece of history in the process. So, and some hesitant to do anything with it.
Yeah, which I understand. I suppose it's that, like say, preservation, isn't it? If you keep it as it is, it's history as it is. So, so just going back to the electronics side of things, then have you studied electronics? Is that where you got your passion from for, like, or is it just something you've learned as a hobby? Or
it's kind of something I've always done. I mean, my dad was an engineer, and when I was a kid, I was always working on like crystal radios and that kind of thing. So it's something I've kind of always fiddled with. My actual education, if you like, is in computer science, so more on the software side of things. But yeah, it's always been a hobby of mine. It's not something I claim to be any good at. So I tried in my videos. I try not to kind of speak with authority on things. It's more a case of, this is what I'm doing. Let's kind of explore this together. If you have any feedback or any kind of suggestions on what I'm doing, then that's kind of very gladly accept those, because it's all kind of an ongoing learning thing. Yeah, so it is very much a hobby, but it's an ongoing thing, and it's something I'm learning about all the time.
Well, you say you seem quite competent. I know basics of electronics. I'm a radio amateur, so I did the intermediate level, which you learn a bit about the component, and that's basically why I did it, just to understand like what capacitors and resistors and all that kind of thing does. So I found that interesting. But you seem to know your way around it and explain things, so it's interesting.
Well, for every 15-20 minute video, there's hours and hours and hours of footage of stuff that didn't work, that obviously gets cut. It comes across well in the videos, but yeah, I'm honest about that. I don't try to hide that.
So what got you into YouTube then? Was it just the fact that you just wanted to do it as a bit of a hobby, or somebody taught you in?
I've been watching YouTube for a very long time, since Google Video and YouTube were two separate things. Back when like the 8-bit guy and Ashens and all of those people kind of first started, kind of early pioneers. And it's something I've always fancied doing. And editing and making silly little videos is something that I've always done, kind of as a hobby. I don't really know what the catalyst was that kind of suddenly, set me off and made me decide to actually take the plunge and make a proper go of it. I guess just felt the time was right. It was actually Instagram. I actually started on Instagram a few years ago, posting pictures of some of my projects and things, and that kind of grew to be quite popular. And then I kind of started posting short video clips and things on there, and then I suppose YouTube was the next natural progression. But it's something that's been in the back of my mind probably for, how long has YouTube been going? Probably 10 years that I've kind of been thinking I should have a go at that. So yeah, it's been fun. Years ago, I was involved in running a gaming website, which is now defunct, something that a lot of people probably don't know. And obviously, kind of putting yourself out there and putting that content out there, particularly in that kind of community, because it's kind of current gen stuff and trying to keep up with the latest news and stuff. You learn how to deal with trolls and some of the nastier elements of the internet, and yeah, you kind of learn that everything that you do has to be right, or somebody out there is going to jump on it, and a lot of people are going to jump on it anyway. So
yeah,
I think that's also part of the reason that kind of made me quite hesitant to actually get started on YouTube. But thankfully, so far, touch wood, it's still been a very sort of positive experience. So.
I'm a big believer in that you can't appease everybody all of the time, and if they go, to be honest, the trolls are going to troll no matter what you do. So I just think, well, if you've got nothing better to do, then go ahead, because at the end of the day, it's their time they're wasting, nobody else's. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You mentioned the Atari Falcon. Do you own a Falcon, or is that a computer you'd like to own, or?
I don't know, and I've had opportunities to own them in the past, and I've foolishly not taken those opportunities. And now, if I wanted one, I'd end up spending about $2,000 or so, which is something yeah, they're ridiculous, and it's something I really can't justify. So I don't currently own one, no.
So it's hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? I've on some of the other interviews I've done, we've talked about how things have seemed to gone up and up and up in price. I remember picking up an IBM 5150 from a radio rally in 2011 for £8, and it had the monitor and everything. And I sold it to a museum. They bought it off me because they were looking for them, and they weren't even bothered whether it were working or not, but it was working. And you just look back and you think, why didn't I just keep that? Because everything's gone balmy in price now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have sold it to me. I bought one not all that long ago, so a year or so ago. I recently got the 162 as well, which was the 286 version that they did afterwards. To get around to making a video on that. So much stuff I pick up and I think, oh, I'll make a video. I have this huge backlog, which is good, I suppose. It's better than running out of ideas.
I think the problem is life gets in the way. So much stuff happens, especially at the moment as well. Because I've got lots of ideas on why I want to do stuff, but like I say, you just start to overload your brain then, because you think, well, I want to do all this stuff, but I've actually done none of them.
Oh no, definitely.
So
yeah, when you do get 5 minutes to sit down, you think, right, which one do I actually start on now?
Totally get that. I can see from the background you've got a lot of Jaguar games up on the top shelf. Is that one of your favourite consoles, or what is your opinion on the Atari Jaguar?
Yeah, good question. I just remember as a kid we used to get the ST format magazine, which had the Atari ST, and sort of towards the end of the ST's life they were really pushing the Jaguar, because it was kind of a last-ditch effort for Atari to kind of survive as a business kind of thing. And I just remember it being really heavily advertised in ST format, and they covered all the regular games and stuff as well. And just as a kid, I just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I just thought, wow, look at look at these graphics and stuff. And obviously, in hindsight, you compare it to the other consoles of the time, and it's not been remembered fondly, shall we say? But yeah, it was just one of those ones that I always wanted as a kid, and I bought it. I had one when I was a student, probably when they were selling them off for next to nothing, and I had like the Jag and pretty much complete collection of box games and stuff, and sealed games when they were nothing. And then I sold it all, and I've recently started buying it all back again. Hence, I have these. Honest opinion on it as a console, I think there are a few good games, a few good exclusives on there that you don't get on any other console. Is it worth paying the kind of money that they're selling for now just to play those games? Probably not. But like I say, it was kind of a childhood dream for me, so it was one that I had to get. And I just love the look of the branding and the boxes and stuff and all that kind of stuff around it. If technically not a brilliant console, at least they got the branding and the marketing side of things right, I think. So.
I always remember with the Atari, it was always the discussion about whether it was true 64-bit or was it with 32 bits, and there was a lot of questions around that. Because I think was it the actual blitter or graphics chip that was actually 64-bit or something like that, and the processors were 32, but I'm not quite sure on that. Something.
Yeah. I mean, you've got two custom 32-bit processors running on 4-bit bus. Could you define that as 64-bit? Yeah, I guess so.
It's creative marketing. I think it's really good.
I mean, ultimately, the whole bit thing's pretty meaningless anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, from a computer science point of view,
yeah, cause it was all about the numbers back in them days, weren't it? About CDs and how many bits it was. And I remember the Mega Drive. They used to say, "Oh, it's X amount megabit cartridge," and actually a megabit is different to a megabyte anyway. And it was how they marketed it to get people to buy.
I was going to say, I think it was Sega that actually started it with the Mega Drive when they put, I think they actually put 16-bit across the front of it, didn't they? And all of a sudden, everyone was like, "Oh, bits." Meaningless to the kind of average person, but there you go, marketing people for you.
Nobody probably knew what they were, but just because it had got a big number next to it. Should have put 1024 kilobytes. Didn't think, wow.
Oh yeah.
But it's I remember the Jaguar when I remember it being in Dixon's in the bargain bin for like £39, and again it's like we should have picked some up.
Yeah, I think that's about what I paid for mine when I had one as a student all those years ago. So, unfortunately, I needed the money and stuck it all on eBay.
Yeah, that's what happens with life. It's life again, isn't it? I know I did say with my collection, I had quite a bit. I had CD32s and all sorts and got rid of it. Probably before they started to rise in price as well, so I probably didn't get the money back.
Yeah, that's why I don't sell anything now. I just hoard everything. Because I know I'll regret it later.
Well, I would imagine as well, when you sold your Jaguar stuff, when you bought it back, you're probably paying more because obviously the cost got up again.
Oh, yes. I mean, some of the games on the Jaguar now, you're looking at paying £300 or £400 just for one game. It's just can't. Fortunately, there's the flash cart, the game drive that's just come out. So I won't be paying that kind of money for those games. Fortunately, I can play them using the flash cart now. But yeah, it's an expensive hobby, or it can be if you're obsessive about everything. The truth of the matter is, I bought most of the computers and the consoles and stuff in less than perfect condition. A lot of the stuff I bought wasn't working, and it's all stuff that I kind of fixed up myself. If you're kind of looking for absolute pristine mint stuff in box, then it can be a very expensive hobby. But if you're prepared to a little bit of working and kind of fix stuff up, there's still bargains to be had, I think.
I think that's what makes me jealous of you, the fact that you've got that ability to make things work again. I'd love to do that. I watched the video where you bought stuff from Yahoo Japan. Was it Yahoo Japan? Something like that, I think. Yahoo
wow.
Auctions. And I was going to ask, because obviously I've looked on there, there's some really good bargains, but is there any cost in like shipping or anything? But how do you go about getting that back over here?
Yeah, so Buy, BUYEE.jp is the website that I used, and it's like a forwarding service. So you bid on the stuff through their website, and then it gets shipped to their warehouse in Japan, and then they ship it back over to the UK. I haven't bought anything on there in quite a long time now. I kind of got into the Famicom for a bit, and kind of ended up acquiring a lot of Famicom stuff through them. Yeah, there are hidden costs. Shipping can add up, and then obviously once it gets here, there's charges and stuff. So thankfully that's kind of a habit that I got out of, because that did end up being quite an expensive one. The good thing about that is that obviously there's not a lot of that stuff in the UK. So if you do put it up on eBay, you do generally make your money back on it. A little bit more, I think, generally. So potentially business opportunity there, importing stuff, but it's a lot of work.
You heard it here first. Copyright Ctrl-Alt-Rees.
Yeah. I'm selling some stuff on eBay at the minute. A bit of a shameless plug. So, yeah.
What is your eBay?
It's a
eBay name, is it the same as it is on everywhere else?
Oh yeah, it's just Ctrl-Alt-Rees, but yeah, the Yahoo Auctions Japan gets a bit addictive, and obviously because it's all in yen, it doesn't seem like your money, so you just end up bidding on stuff, and it arrives, and you think, oh, I guess I'll play with that for 5 minutes and stick it on eBay. It's all good. It's all fun. I mean, obviously there are whole channels that are kind of built around that concept of, look at all this cool stuff, kind of thing, and it is really interesting to see, because the kind of the culture and the history of gaming stuff over there was completely different. So yeah, different angle on things.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about the community, because there's so many different aspects of it you can look at, and all different and all interesting as well. Like you say, in one country what was big, like in America it was the NES, and over here the NES wasn't that big, but like say in Japan it was like my first computer was a Toshiba HX10 MSX, and obviously that wasn't very big in the UK, but in Japan it was massive. Some of the early games, the big name games, came out on that first over there. But again, it's interesting how different countries took different routes, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. I was completely unaware of the MSX at the time. I didn't even realise we had them in the UK. But I talked to people, and there's actually quite a few people out there who had them. But yeah, like you say, massive in Japan. And the really weird thing is, it was all kind of Microsoft that kind of drove the whole thing. It's a bit weird considering it's kind of seen as a Japanese thing. But yeah, interesting. Definitely the MSX.
It interests me. I think it was ahead of its time, because it's almost like that. It didn't quite succeed in doing it with the hardware, but with the software, with like Windows, he succeeded in making the like one system you can potentially work on different games. And then it's sort of come full circle now, because obviously crossplay is a massive thing now. They're trying to get the Sony to play against the Xbox Online and stuff. So in reality, it was almost a very early version of that. Different makes all could use the same games.
Yeah, I think they could obviously see at the time that standardization was going to be the big thing, and obviously, as has been proven with the PC and IBM compatible and all the DOS side of things, that did end up being the case. But yeah, if the MSX had been more successful, perhaps we could all be using descendants of MSX machines now rather than interesting to think about.
Yeah. It is very. I think he's very clever. Bill Gates. He's very astute at what he does or what he did. I know people knock him and stuff, but at the end of the day, he made lots of money, and he standardised the way we use PCs in reality. So you don't seem too sure.
No, I've been through phases. I've kind of obviously in my day job as a professional developer, I've done a lot of stuff with .NET, and it's all kind of Windows based stuff. And obviously I grew up with DOS and all of that side of things, so it's massive influence. But kind of personally, on the more personal side of things, I've been into Linux and open source stuff for quite a long time, and obviously now Microsoft is starting to embrace it. But historically, it was all kind of they were very much against it and trying to kill it off and stuff. And I think that was a particularly dark era in Microsoft's past, although got to protect their business interests, I suppose. But I don't think there's any denying that Bill Gates is, he's an incredibly clever guy and obviously very good at what he does, or what he did. And now he seems to be doing the right thing and atoning for his sins and trying to use his vast fortune to make the world a better place as well. So, yeah, I suppose you can't be knocking for that.
I think it's like a lot of people in the gaming industry, though. You either love them or hate them, but without their input, it wouldn't have gone along as it has done. I know a lot of people don't like Jack Tramiel because of the way he acted, and yeah, he was quite ruthless in what he did, but he also made the Commodore at the time a big business. He worked for Atari. You know what I mean? He's one of them names again that's out there that, yeah, love him or hate him, he is part of the history of what we do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And of course, obviously before Windows and DOS and kind of that 90s era of Microsoft that they kind of remembered for. I mean, if you think back to like the early 8-bit machines, that they did the actual ROM basic for pretty much all of those machines. So
yeah,
they were working on that kind of standardization long before those days, and like we said before, the MSX as well. So yeah, definitely made his mark on the world, and we wouldn't be where we are today without Microsoft. So.
And don't get me wrong, I do like Linux and open source stuff. I prefer open source stuff over other things. Like I don't use Office. I use the Open Office or LibreOffice or whatever it's called. And I think we're getting to that point now where some of those are almost as good as the commercial offerings. And it's funny how the commercial offerings are starting to look at their model and change to how they work. Like making it free and stuff, and it's quite interesting that.
Yeah, but I think traditionally the way to make money out of open source was to kind of give it away for free and then license the support side of things, and it certainly seems the commercial offerings are starting to go down that route as well. So obviously they had the right idea there.
Do you ever program for the Apple Mac? What's your thoughts on the Apple side of things?
I had a Mac for a few years. I've been, like I mentioned before, I've kind of been into making silly little videos and video editing and that kind of stuff for a while. Back when the Intel Mac Mini came out, I had one of those and a Firewire camcorder and kind of used that. Every time I go to buy a new PC, I always seriously look at Apple and I think, should I, shouldn't I? And for whatever reason, I don't. I go down the Windows route. That said, I think the ARM-based CPUs that they're coming out with are really, really interesting. I think it's something that the world's needed for quite a long time, and it seems quite overdue. And like the performance and the battery life on them is just miles ahead of anything that Intel's doing. So, yeah, maybe next time. I've quite recently had a new laptop, but maybe next time you're looking at Apple a bit more seriously.
You've done some videos, obviously, around. I noticed controllers are one of the big things you like looking at and tinkering with. I think, did you do one of the Ultimate Joystick controller, which was a Neo Geo one, I believe?
Yeah, one joystick to rule them all.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah, because that was kind of a very, very early attempt at a series on my channel, because I thought, if I'm going to start a YouTube channel, I want to kind of be known for something. It's good to have a series, and then obviously people will keep coming back and watching the series. And it just so happens that I bought a Neo Geo joystick from Yahoo Auctions Japan, as you do. I don't own a Neo Geo. Built an Atari joystick adapter. I can't remember what order I actually did them in, but I think Atari was first. And it just worked so well, and I was so impressed with it that I thought, I should have a go at building these for other computers and make a bit of a series about it. So that's kind of how that started, and it's one I keep saying that I want to go back to, and I really want to do one for the BBC Micro, just because I think the joysticks are out there for that aren't very good, and the Archimedes as well. I think that's something that you benefit from a joystick adapter, but they're the kind of thing that take quite a lot of work behind the scenes just to kind of prototype circuits and that kind of stuff. And so it's something that I do intend to get back into, but it's kind of on hold for now while I kind of play with some other stuff. But it's a good way of learning about electronics and all that side of things as well. Yeah, I need to. That's the other side of things, isn't it? Doing it back the other way. So making things work with PC. So there's plenty of scope there for future projects, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because there's so many, and I think this is where I think retro sort of combines with modern things. People are trying to introduce modern things, like they say, like the micro drives, using SD cards, joystick converters, so we can keep those older systems longevity a bit longer, keep them alive a bit longer.
Yeah, it's something I'm really really in favour of. Stuff like the Gotek floppy emulators and using like SD cards, compact flash cards as hard drives with these old computers and stuff. It just makes life so much easier. Just suffer with things like cassettes and floppy disks back in the day doesn't mean that we need to now. Although of course they have their charm, don't they? Still fun to play with occasionally. I mean I always put any kind of modern word. These kind of modern enhancements and stuff in these old machines. Because I'm not a purist like that. I think it's better to have stuff that's kind of usable that you can just sort of get out and use and enjoy than having to fight with something just for the sake of authenticity. Definitely. Plus, the process of kind of installing them and getting them set up is still part of the fun as well.
Is that your main outlet for modern gaming than your PC, or do you have any modern like PlayStations or Xboxes?
No, the last current gen console I had was a 360, and had a Wii. I'm interested in modern stuff. I just have so much stuff to play with that I just don't have enough time for it. So, yeah, even on the PC. I mean, I've been playing Doom Eternal is probably the newest game I've played. So, anything in the Doom franchise, I'll always check out. That was good. Really enjoyed that.
It was on my channel where I play systems via emulation that I've never owned, and I did the Jaguar a couple of weeks ago. Now, don't get me wrong, the Jaguar emulation is not very. It's very hit and miss, but it did run Alien vs Predator, and I was quite impressed at how that game ran and looked. You know what I mean? It didn't look bad for the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah, it's one of that kind of small handful of games on the Jaguar that are kind of worth owning a Jaguar for, because it's not really it's quite unique for that platform. It's not something that was released on any other platform. So yeah, great game, Alien vs Predator.
And it looked good as well. It moved quite well as well. Then unfortunately I put Katsumi Ninja on, and that sort of changed the way I thought of the Jaguar. I don't even know what they were thinking about with that game, because it's like Mortal Kombat, and then how many people can we offend by putting stereotypes in?
Yeah, like Kasumi Ninja, that came with the like the bandana headband thing as well, didn't it? So just to add to the whole racial stereotype thing. But there you go.
I know on some of your other videos as well, you look at your arcade, your main machine. Have you still got your main machine?
I have, yeah. It's I'm hoping to get back onto that in the summer. It needs painting and the software side of things and send on there and stuff. But yeah, it kind of lives in the garage at the minute. But hopefully, once it's finished and looking presentable, the wife will let me bring it back in the house. You know.
I think you've got a very understanding wife anyway, because she let you take you to your wedding, didn't she?
Yeah, that's true. Is very understanding and very kind of supportive. I know a lot of people aren't that lucky, and she kind of turns a blind eye. I think just lets me get it. Makes me happy. So.
What I did like about the main machine was he put the steering wheel in the middle and put the pedals on. I thought that was really good, because that's something I've always wanted. Like, if I haven't got the room in the house we live in, but like an arcade cabinet with a steering wheel on, because I'd love to put all the old races on there.
Yeah, well, when I first built it, the original plan was to have it modular, so I could remove the control panel and sort of fit driving controls in their place. But it never worked out. So when I had the opportunity to redo it, I thought, no, I want to kind of make it as easy as possible. Yeah, again, it's this kind of ease of use thing when it comes to this older stuff, because the easier you make it, the more likely you are to actually use it. So, I've seen some cabs out there where they just try and cram everything onto it. It can end up being a bit overwhelming. So hopefully I found the right balance between something that looks kind of half decent and authentic, but something that's flexible enough and got those driving controls and the spinner control and everything else that means you can play all sorts of different stuff on it. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with it. Just need to get it finished.
And I know you mentioned in that video that you'd like is your dream to have a Sega Astro City cab at some point.
Yeah. Well, yet another thing I bought on the Yahoo auctions Japan through Bai. I actually bought an Astro City control panel, which I've got up on the wall as part of my set here. Yeah, I never really understood them or kind of saw the appeal of them until we actually went to Japan a couple of years ago, and you go into the arcades and it's like actually that experience of kind of sitting down in front of it, and it's such a nice compact little thing, and because they are all built to the same standard, they all use the Jammer standard, and all the games and things are interchangeable between them, and I just think it'd be a nice tidy compact little thing to own, and actually quite useful to quite usable. But, of course it's the cost of importing them that's the main issue. So, and yet again, whether the wife would allow me to have it in the house. Maybe we'll deal with that when it comes to it.
Yeah, I'm going to say just feign. Don't know what it is. It must be delivered to the wrong house. But seeing as it's here, we might as well keep it.
Well, I was thinking when I bought the control panel, I was thinking, well, perhaps if I'd start buying all of the parts individually, and as they arrive, I can sort of assemble them, and then there'll be like a tipping point where we suddenly have one in the house, and it's like, well, I've put back into building this kind of thing.
So it starts off as one button, and before you know it, there's a big white cabinet in the corner with a 25-inch television.
like these people you hear about that, like, they'll build a Ferrari in their basement or whatever, and then they have to have the whole garden excavated so they can get it out.
Did you get one of the mini versions that came out, or are they not out yet? The mini Astro cabs.
I didn't know. I think they were Japan exclusive for a while, but I think they've just launched in the UK. Need to have a look.
Yeah, I
think
think
they look really good.
I'm jealous that you've been to Japan as well, because I know I watch. What's his name? There's a guy I watch who lives in Japan, and he fixes arcade boards, and he does somewhere he goes like travelling about, and is it hard off or hard stuff or something like that? What sell like all the old consoles, and they're literally all hung up on a wall in bags, and there's all like, and you just think, I wish there was something like that around here.
Yeah, we didn't actually go to. I didn't know about hard off when we went, so it's kind of completely missed it, which is a shame. It's like a big second-hand shop that sells all kinds of stuff. We did go to Super Potato in Tokyo, which is like the big famous retro game shop. But yeah, I think if and when we go again, I'll have to take my camera and make a bit of a video. Yeah, so, but yeah, it's highly recommended. I can highly recommend checking out Japan if you get the opportunity. Awesome place.
Was it more game orientated than, you know, like were you walking around and could you see like all the characters and stuff, or is it just specific shops? Because in this country, unless you go to a town centre, you probably find game if you're lucky, and that's it. There's nothing. But is it more game orientated over in Japan?
It's the arcade scene that's kind of the really big thing over there. I mean, you go to any of the big cities and you can't walk down a road without coming across a huge Taito or Sega branded arcade, and they're always packed full of people, you know, playing on the crane grabber games and pachinko over there. So yeah, it's I think it's all driven by the arcades really, and that side of things.
Are you into Pokemon? You don't go out, or do you go out on the streets catching them on your phone, like my wife does?
In a word. In a word. No, I'm not. And it was just that when Pokemon first came about, I think I was about 15, 16, that kind of awkward age, and it was like, oh, you know, why would I want to get into that? And I kind of regret it a bit actually, because it seems like a lot of fun, and I think I've probably missed the boat a bit on Pokemon, but I just never got into it for that reason, just because it was that phase in my life when it came along. So yeah,
and it is quite. I know it's quite big. I say my wife, she likes playing it and stuff, and like, you wouldn't believe that before obviously all this kicked off with lockdowns and stuff, you used to go into parks and you'd see people literally wandering about in like groups, or like sheep looking for whatever has just appeared somewhere over there. They'd all rush into one corner to get it. It's mental how big it is.
Yeah, well, I did give it a go. I did have the app on my phone for quite a while, and I mean, I live in quite a small village, and the church here is a Pokestop apparently. And it's actually within range of my house, so you can kind of see all the people kind of battling for control of the local church, and it's like there's barely any kids in this village. I don't know who it was. I don't know if people were coming in from outside or. Yeah.
I bet you were one of them people that when they used to battle and put somebody in, you were like, right, they've gone, kick them out straight away, put yours back in.
Yeah, no, it's my turn. Get out. Yeah.
See, this is a different side to you we don't normally see. The Pokemon side.
I know. Yeah, when we went to Tokyo, I did go to the Pokemon Center, and I did get the app out and get the exclusive Pokemon that you can only get from the Pokemon Center. So I say I'm not into it, but maybe I'm just in denial.
I'm going to say, you say you're not into it, but you know a hell of a lot more than I know about it, and my wife talks about it all the time. I think it's like a secret hidden thing that you're probably trying to cover up, but actually in reality you are. Perhaps you should be called Ctrl-Alt-Pikachu or something like that. Well,
yeah, but, I mean, I don't know, maybe if I had a Pokemon channel, it would be 10 times as popular.
What to say? Where did the name come from? Obviously called Ctrl-Alt. Is it to do with the keys on the keyboard? Ctrl-Alt-Delete. Is that where the name initially came from?
Yeah. So I kind of first started on Instagram, and I have a personal account on there, of course, public, which uses my full real name. And I was posting pictures of I think it was when I was first working on my arcade cabinet stuff, and I started to get quite a big following on there. And then I would do stuff like, you know, I'd go to a family birthday or on holiday or whatever, and post those on the same account, and I'd get loads of comments from random strangers on like my holiday photos and stuff. And I thought, I really need to separate this out into a separate thing. So I don't actually know where the name Ctrl-Alt-Rees. I don't think it was just completely on a whim. It was just, you know, create a new account, and I thought, oh, what should I call it? Ctrl-Alt-Rees, and it wasn't really something that I really put any thought into. But people seemed to like it, and you know, a lot of those people that were following me initially kind of made the jump over to that account, and then when I set up on YouTube and then Twitter with the same name. You know, a lot of people kind of followed me onto there as well, and it's just kind of stuck really. So yeah, I can't really see myself rebranding or going under another name. Yeah, despite the fact that it was just one of those things that seems to come out of nowhere. And
it's a catchy name. I mean, it's simple, and people remember it simply, like you say, because of Ctrl-Alt-Delete. Anybody who's into computers knows that. You know what I mean? There's even memes, isn't it, with just the Microsoft keyboard with just those 3 buttons on anything. So, it's
one actually.
Sorry.
No, well, one thing I was going to say about smaller channels and stuff. I know that when I was very first getting started, when I had, it's very difficult to start a YouTube channel from nothing, as I'm sure you're well aware, and that kind of early slog is it can be quite demoralizing, you know, putting so much work into something, people just don't see it, and you know, it's really hard to get it promoted and get it in front of people and stuff. And one thing that I've always, obviously, now I'm up to I think 3,300 subscribers on my channel, and one thing I've always kind of wanted to do as the channel grows is not forget how it started and how it felt to be that kind of size. And you know, I would hate to get to a point where, you know what I'm saying, like you, obviously you sent me a message and said, hey, you know, do you want to do an interview for my channel? And I looked at your channel, and obviously you've got about 300 subscribers.
Something like that, yeah.
And I thought, well, yeah, you know, why not? Yeah, when I was first getting started, and I was kind of that kind of size, and I'm speaking now like I'm some kind of YouTube big shot, and I know what I'm talking about and that kind of stuff. It's absolutely not the case. But you know, when I was that kind of size, I really appreciated it when the slightly bigger channels would do things like that for me to help me out. And so it's something that I'm really keen on doing for smaller channels, and kind of getting involved and doing collaborations and that kind of stuff, even as the channel grows, not only with people bigger than me because it benefits me, but also with people smaller than me because I know that it's going to benefit them and help them out as well. So that's kind of the point that I was getting to anyway.
No, and it's like I've always said, I don't expect my channel to be massive. I just do it because I enjoy the hobby and I like talking to people and all that kind of thing, and like yourself. But I also, and it's the same when I was at work. I started in my role as agency staff, and I worked my way up to managerial level and all that kind of thing. But I never forgot where I started from, because you see them come in, but some people come in high up and think, oh, I've got this degree, that degree, I didn't start there, and they see people as numbers, but they don't realise sometimes how, even down to how, like, somebody's being paid a different wage to you, but you're doing the same job, and they don't see that kind of intricacies. Does that make sense? So I always, I suppose it's like you say, I'm always there for the little guy as well, because I know what that's like. I've been there and I've worked my way up. So some people sometimes forget where they came from, and you see it all the time. I'm not saying not everybody, because definitely not. I like enjoying watching some of the bigger I love RMC, Retro Man Cave, because his content is really interesting. That's what I'm into. But you see others who I'll not name, who you know where they started, but you can almost see that change in attitude towards people. And it's a shame, really, because at the end of the day, it's just a hobby. It's a hobby that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you should mention RMC, because obviously the kind of RMC Discord community's kind of been quite a big thing as far as my channel's concerned, and Neil's been really supportive of me, and he is supportive of a lot of sort of members there who have their own small channels. You know, despite the fact that he's gone full time, and I think he's just getting to the point now where he's actually starting to do 2 videos a week, which is a huge amount of work. And yet he still has time to talk to those kind of smaller guys who are part of that community, and that's something I really appreciate from him, and kind of something, and he's been a big inspiration to my channel and my content as well. So definitely enjoy the stuff that he puts out. And, I think he is genuinely a decent bloke as well, which is good.
Right, well, can I just say thank you very much for being on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Reese, and thank you very much for taking time out, because I know it's busy. And thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's been good. It's been nice to actually sit and have a chat with someone. So yeah, thanks for reaching out, and I'm really glad I did it. So look, best of luck with the interviews and the rest of the series, and I shall be watching.
Thank you, and I shall put a link to your channel in the description below.
Next time on A Retro Ramble.
I think personally I'm not that fussed. Well, I mean, actually, honestly, personally, I wouldn't give a shit. But I guess for the sake of argument, I think Ben and I have discussed this before, and it's sort of 2 or 3 console generations prior starts to count.
Yeah.
And also, then when you think these are like 40-year-old men that are saying that's not retro, but like for kids that the first console they would have had when they were a nipper was a Wii, and now they're going to university. And I think, well, for them that's retro.
Yeah,
it's relative.
I would just like to say a big thank you to all the special guests who took the time out of their busy schedules to appear on Retro Ramble. It is really much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of A Retro Ramble with. All links to the special guest channel can be found in the description below this video. If you enjoyed watching, then please like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon to be informed of when the next episode is uploaded.